all point to different reasons for why we think traffic is in a particular area. What does it come down to?
Well, construction is clearly an issue. Having 24% of the roads under construction last summer is really a stunning figure. It just shows how far behind we are in maintenance and also how much work is being done in our city. So that's positive that things are getting built, but it's also causing a huge amount of frustration. But overall, this is really tactical. And the bigger picture is we have too many cars and not enough space. We cannot expand the amount of road space. There was a 26% increase in the number of vehicle registrations. Over 100,000 newcomers came to Toronto just last year. This is putting pressure on our city and on our streets, and you're seeing it in terms of the congestion that people are experiencing.
If I just swing back to the construction for a moment, there's all sorts of different kinds of construction. Maybe it's putting fiber optic cables or dealing with sewage lines in the ground. Maybe it's a bump out into because of a residential construction project or something that takes out a lane of traffic. In response to this, the city is introducing these small fees and considering a levy on construction projects to basically make it more expensive the longer you block a lane of traffic. Would that be effective in fighting gridlock?
Well, this is a pricing strategy that if you raise the price on something, that people will respond by trying to find more efficient ways to do that construction. One of the most frustrating aspects for Torontonians is when you know that the construction is necessary, but you go by a construction site and there's no one working there, or it just feels like it's dragged on forever. And so putting a price on that construction can help accelerate the project. Now, as you said, there's different people doing that construction, different organizations, whether it's utilities or condo construction, but also the city. And I think the city has to manage their own construction projects and make sure that there are workers on those jobs, whether it's the TTC or the city doing road work, to make sure that that stuff is moving quickly as well.
What do you mean by manage? I mean,
Have workers there every day, make sure that the equipment is there, make sure that things are getting delivered and that it's staged properly so that these projects don't drag on forever. We all have our own examples in our minds, in our own neighborhoods of the project that you go by every day, whether it's on the streetcar or on your bike or in your car, and you're just like, why is there no one working on this? I know this needs to get done, but can we have some people doing this job right now? Some of that is about the labor force, and we've talked about labor force and productivity over the years. This is a sector where people are aging, and it's hard to attract people into construction. But there's also a matter of managing these jobs and making sure they can actually get done efficiently.
we talked about just the sheer number of cars in construction as the reason for congestion within the city, but I want to talk to you about moving between cities, and that is the 401, busiest highway by some measures, certainly in Canada and perhaps in North America. It's been a huge issue. The premier has proposed to build this tunnel. He has now rejected the idea of using the shoulder, the emergency lane. How might we manage that differently?
So interesting. Now we're moving from the tactical to the strategic and something that's decades out. So what is being discussed now for the 401 is not for your commute on a Thursday morning at 6:55 a.m., but is rather for something 30, 40 years out, whether it's a tunnel. The tunnel has likely will not solve the problem. It'll just induce more demand. Really, we need to be looking at public transit. And we're also back to this discussion about road tolls. And can we encourage people to carpool, to take public transit, to make the bus network much more efficient, to put dedicated bus lanes in places that there's just no space for them now because there's so much traffic. That is the ultimate solution for the 401 gridlock. And hopefully the study that's going to be done will take that into consideration as we look to how we're going to solve the congestion problem.
You talk about road tolls. In some ways, you're also talking about congestion pricing. This is something that does exist in other cities around the world where the busiest part, particularly the downtown core, it costs more money to get into with a vehicle. The premier has come out and said, so long as he's premier, that's not going to be a thing in this province. Why do you think there is still a case for congestion pricing?
Because it works. Because it's worked in other cities. It will work, and it's working here. The 407 is the one highway that reliably in this region, you know that if you go on that highway, you will get across the top of the city in the time that is predicted and expected. Whereas on every other highway, it can be quick or it can be a living nightmare to be on that facility. So we know that it works, and it's part of the solution. We're not trying to price people off the road. We're not trying to create roads for the rich. There is an equity concern, and we have to build it in. But road pricing is absolutely part of the solution alongside better public transit and encouraging people to carpool and use other modes of transportation.
I want to talk to you about bike lanes as well, because the office of the provincial transport minister has come out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but that they are open to the idea of a compromise on bike lanes. So long as a lane of traffic is restored, they are okay, perhaps, with the idea that the bike lanes would continue. Now, there are a number of places in the city of Toronto that this could potentially affect. What do you think about that idea of a compromise?
To me, this spoke to the bike lanes in more suburban areas and most likely specifically in Etobicoke. And I think that could be a good option. I think that having bike lanes in places where they're causing frustration and where there's minimal use today is not necessarily the most effective. But in the middle, and we can find solutions, and it's great that they're negotiating. But through the center of the city, where the bike lanes are very well used, and also where the businesses support them, we have to keep them and make sure that people are safe, make sure that that is a viable option because it's part of the congestion busting plan. We have to have people using other alternatives. We are not going to be able to have everyone commuting by car all the time, or this city will just be strangled by gridlock.
If it is possible to have a compromise that you could have both the restored lane of traffic and the bike lane together, why would that not have been the plan from the get-go?
Sometimes there's conflicts in terms of how these things are implemented. They're looking to prioritize different aspects, whether it's speed or whether it's fully separated bike lanes. We're going to have to look at what the design options are. But I think this is in the negotiation, and it's good that they're discussing it. And it's good that you're hearing positive signs from both parties in this negotiation to make sure that we don't just have a blanket removal of bike lanes in places that they're very well used and where they are providing safety and they are encouraging more people to use this alternative to driving around.
Matti Siemiatycki, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, David.
That is Matti Siemiatycki, who's director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto and also a professor of geography and planning. Black Sharif